My fiancé faked a pregnancy to keep me from breaking up with her, and now she's pretending to have a miscarriage to manipulate me further. Hi everyone, I need to get this off my chest because I'm in a situation that I can't wrap my head around. I'm 32 and up until recently, I was engaged to my 29F fiancée, Claire. We'd been together for 3 years, and for most of that time, things were good. But over the past 6 months, things started to fall apart, and now I'm stuck in a nightmare I can't seem to escape. It all started when I began noticing that Claire was becoming more possessive and controlling. She'd always had a bit of a jealous streak, but it got worse. She started checking my phone, demanding to know where I was at all times, and even showing up at my workplace unannounced. It was suffocating. I tried to talk to her about it, but she'd always brush it off, saying she was just worried about losing me. Things reached a breaking point when I caught her going through my emails. I confronted her about it, and she broke down, crying and apologizing, saying she was just scared because she loved me so much. I told her that this wasn't healthy and that we needed to work on our trust issues if our relationship was going to survive. She agreed, but nothing changed. If anything, it got worse. I started to seriously consider ending the relationship. I even talked to my best friend about it, trying to figure out the best way to break things off. I didn't want to hurt Claire, but I also couldn't keep living like this. Just as I was working up the nerve to talk to her, Claire dropped a bombshell. She told me she was pregnant. I was shocked. I hadn't seen this coming at all. We hadn't been trying for a baby, and I was on the fence about having kids at all. But there she was, showing me a positive pregnancy test and telling me how excited she was to start a family together. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was terrified, but another part of me felt trapped. How could I break up with her now? How could I leave her when she was carrying my child? So, I didn't. I pushed my doubts aside and tried to be supportive. I told her we'd figure things out together, and I started preparing myself for fatherhood. But as the weeks went by, something felt off. Claire started acting even more erratic, constantly talking about the baby, but she refused to see a doctor. She said she wanted to wait until she was further along to make sure everything was okay before we made it official with a doctor's visit. I found this strange, but I didn't want to push her. I figured maybe she was just nervous or worried about something going wrong. But the more time passed, the more uneasy I became. I started to doubt whether she was actually pregnant, but I didn't know how to confront her without sounding like an asshole. Then, about 2 months after she first told me she was pregnant, Claire came home from work in tears, claiming she'd had a miscarriage. She was hysterical, saying she'd been cramping and bleeding all day, and that by the time she got to the hospital, it was too late. I was devastated. I held her while she cried, trying to comfort her, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The next day, I tried to talk to her about what had happened, but she wouldn't give me any details. She said the doctors told her it was just one of those things and that she didn't want to talk about it anymore. She didn't have any paperwork from the hospital, and she refused to go back for a follow-up appointment, saying it was too painful to revisit the whole ordeal. That's when I started to suspect that the whole thing was a lie. I know it sounds crazy, but there were so many red flags. I didn't know what to do, so I did something I'm not proud of. I went through her phone. I know, it was a shitty thing to do, but I was desperate for answers. What I found confirmed my worst fears. There were text messages to her friend where she admitted that she'd faked the pregnancy because she was afraid I was going to leave her. She said she thought it would buy her time to fix things between us. And then, when she realized she couldn't keep up the lie, she decided to fake a miscarriage instead, thinking I'd feel sorry for her and stick around. I was furious. I confronted her immediately, and she broke down, admitting everything. She said she was scared of losing me, that she loved me so much, and that she just wanted us to be happy together. She begged me not to leave her, saying she'd do anything to make it up to me. I was stunned. I couldn't believe that the woman I was planning to marry had done something so manipulative and deceitful. I told her we were done, that I couldn't trust her anymore, and that I needed space. She didn't take it well. She started screaming, saying I was abandoning her when she needed me most, that I was being heartless and cruel. I left the apartment that night and have been staying with a friend ever since. But it didn't end there. Claire has been blowing up my phone with calls and texts, alternating between apologizing and blaming me for everything that went wrong in our relationship. She's even shown up at my friend's place a few times, banging on the door and begging me to talk to her. I've blocked her on everything, but I'm terrified she's going to show up at my work or do something drastic. I don't know what to do. Reddit. Part of me feels guilty for leaving her in such a vulnerable state, but I know I can't stay in a relationship with someone who would do something like this. How do I move on from this? How do I get her to leave me alone? I'm at my wit's end, and I could really use some advice. Update 1. Hey Reddit, I wish I could say things have gotten better, but they've only gotten worse. After my last post, I've tried to distance myself from Claire, but she's not making it easy. I've been staying with my friend and avoiding all contact with her, but she's relentless. I didn't think it could get any crazier, but it has. A few days ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, it was Claire's mother. She was frantic, saying that Claire had been telling everyone that I abandoned her after she miscarried and that she was in a deep depression. She begged me to come over and talk to Claire, to help her through this difficult time. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to expose Claire's lies to her mother, but at the same time, I couldn't just ignore what she was doing. I told her mother that I was sorry Claire was going through a tough time, but that I couldn't be involved right now. She didn't take that well. She accused me of being heartless, saying that I was responsible for Claire's breakdown and that I needed to man up and take care of her. I hung up, feeling sick to my stomach. Claire was manipulating everyone around her, and I didn't know how to stop it. But the worst part came 2 days later. I came home to my friend's place after work, and there was Claire, sitting on the front steps. She looked a mess, hair disheveled, eyes red from crying. She started sobbing as soon as she saw me, saying that she was sorry, that she'd made a mistake, and that she needed me. I told her she needed to leave, that I couldn't do this anymore. But she wouldn't listen. She started begging, saying that she was scared, that she didn't know what to do without me. She said she'd fix everything if I just came home with her. I tried to stay calm, telling her that we both needed space and that she should go back to her mom's house for now. But she snapped. She started screaming, saying that I was ruining her life, that I was abandoning her when she needed me most. I was so shocked that I didn't know what to do. My friend came out and tried to calm her down, but she wasn't having it. She accused him of trying to steal me away from her and started throwing things, her purse, her shoes, whatever she could get her hands on. We had no choice but to call the police. They came and escorted her away, but not before she shouted that I would regret this. I'm scared, Reddit. I don't know what she's going to do next. I've never seen her like this before, and I'm worried she's going to do something drastic. I've talked to my lawyer about getting a restraining order, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. How do I make her stop? How do I get my life back? I feel like I'm trapped in a nightmare, and I don't know how to wake up. Update 2. Hey Reddit, I'm back with what I hope is the final update. Things have escalated to a point where I've had to take some drastic measures to protect myself. I never thought I'd be in a situation like this, but here we are. After the last incident, I did go ahead and file for a restraining order. The process was exhausting, and it felt surreal that I was doing this against someone I'd once planned to marry. But I knew it was necessary. The court granted the temporary restraining order, and I was scheduled to appear in court for a permanent one. I thought that would be the end of it, but Claire didn't take the news well. She started sending me emails from different accounts, claiming that she was pregnant again and that she had a doctor's confirmation this time. She said she wouldn't go to court if I just talked to her, if I just gave her another chance. I didn't believe her for a second, but the emails kept coming, each one more frantic and desperate than the last. My lawyer advised me not to respond, to keep everything as evidence for the court. But it was hard. I'd see her messages pop up, and part of me wanted to tell her to stop, to leave me alone. But I knew that engaging with her would only make things worse. Then, about a week before the court date, Claire showed up at my workplace. I don't know how she found out where I was, but there she was, standing outside the building, waiting for me. She looked different, calmer, more composed. She handed me an envelope and told me to read it before walking away without another word. I didn't open it right away. I was too shaken up. When I finally did, I found a handwritten letter from Claire, saying that she was sorry for everything. She admitted that she'd lied about the pregnancy, the miscarriage, and everything else. She said she was just scared of losing me and that she didn't know how to cope. She claimed that she was going to disappear from my life and that I'd never hear from her again. I should have felt relieved, but all I felt was dread. I didn't trust her. I knew this wasn't the end. The court date finally came, and Claire didn't show up. The judge granted the permanent restraining order, and I thought that was it. I thought I was finally free. But 2 days later, I got a call from Claire's mother. She told me that Claire had checked herself into a psychiatric facility. She said Claire had confessed everything to her, and that she was getting the help she needed. She asked if I could find it in my heart to forgive Claire, to visit her at the hospital. I was at a loss for words. Part of me wanted to go, to see for myself that this was really over, but another part of me knew that it would only drag me back into the chaos. I decided not to go. I couldn't put myself through that again. I've spent the last few days trying to pick up the pieces of my life, to move on from this nightmare. It hasn't been easy, and I know it's going to take time. But I'm hopeful that this is the beginning of the end. Thank you, Reddit, for all your support and advice throughout this ordeal. I don't know what I would have done without it. If there's one thing I've learned from this, it's that you have to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is.